But for me, when you watch the film, there's a sense in which we're addressing the idea that we're all sort of imprisoned in a way in our own views of the passage of time, of what's going on in the world, all the rest. And so there is this kind of leap of faith to the idea of an objective reality. So there's the idea of belief or faith involved with what these characters are choosing to invest in terms of what's really going on in the story. And that was always an intriguing idea to me, and I wanted to be right, up front on screen.
So, Christopher Nolan's Tenet has posed many questions since its release, surrounding filmmaking, concepts, and of course the notion of time. Personally, one that has stuck on my mind over many re-watches is what Nolan points to in that interview which I uploaded a while back. This concerns the idea of free will and how the film, through all of its aspects, tries to get the audience to think about this a little deeper. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the question of free will that Christopher Nolan poses in his latest project and why it's so integral to the film. This video will contain brief spoilers, so if you do happen to be someone who hasn't seen Tenet, then I would recommend watching this video after you've watched it. If you want to see more on the film, including my series on the Nolan Variations book, which I will be doing more uploads on soon, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. But without further ado, let's dive into the idea of free will in Christopher Nolan's Tenet. One of the core concepts in Tenet is the idea of reversed entropy. Saying it's a time travel movie largely overshoots the actual concept of the science fiction in Christopher Nolan's project. The general idea of time travel was always that someone would be teleported into the past and experience time forward once they moved into the past. Much like it is iconically represented in Back to the Future, this form of time travel postulates the idea of time continuing to move forward in the past, thereby any action concurred in this timeline will then influence the future. So how is this related to free will? Well, the idea of free will in time manipulation is often the idea of the choices we make when we are in a different space-time. The idea of Marty McFly nearly ruining his parents' relationship was all about exercising free will in order to change the outcome of an event. Tenet takes things in a different way, exploring the idea that you aren't moving forward in time, but rather the reversal of entropy allows you to travel backwards in time. Our characters may view themselves as moving forwards, but in our eyes they are moving backwards. This essentially means that you are spending your actual time left in this world to go back to the past. Physically, you are moving forwards, but in terms of time, you are moving backwards. Hence the explanation of oxygen particles not really entering your lungs, because only the physical body has been inverted. In Tenet, each character has a certain cycle of their roles in the movie. While we initially experience time in forwards motion, we come to realise that every fight or moment that involves inversion in the movie has been tied into what the character does in the future. Their actions clash with their past actions. It's hard to say whether or not they have free will in the movie, as on one hand you can argue that they have no free will because they assume their roles and act them out. There's essentially no way to deviate from it. But you could also argue that this is in fact based on free will because it is the deciding factor for events to occur in the first place. From the perspective of there being no free will in Tenet, there are a couple of examples which demonstrate this. When the protagonist goes through the turnstile for the first time, it's in a desperate attempt to find and recover a part of a weapon that was stolen by the film's antagonist, Sator. In an earlier car chase, the protagonist fought to keep the weapon safe with Neil, ultimately passing it to Sator in order to save Kat. When he inverts himself, he drives a car to chase him down, hoping to get the equation back, but his car gets wrecked, throwing himself onto the road without the weapon. His car wreck was the same exact car wreck that nearly killed him when he first chased Sator. Summarized, the protagonist's free will to chase down Sator was not free will because he was simply acting out the same things that he saw when he first chased Sator down. What he saw in the past pushed him to make a move in an attempt to change the past, but his actions and subsequent car crash is also an influencing point for why he even had to drive the car in the first place. He is essentially stuck in a cycle at this given moment. Then comes the perspective that there is free will in Christopher Nolan's Tenet. In the final battle, Neil and the protagonist are part of a large-scale pincer movement attack to fight against Sator's forces. In an attempt to save the protagonist, Neil inverts himself in order to save the others. Most importantly, he inverts himself to take a bullet for the protagonist, taking a shot to the head in order to save John David Washington's character, as well as to unlock the door to prevent the detonation of the weapon. Neil was originally set to follow a plan, but he made the move to invert himself in order to create a better outcome at the beginning. There is no telling whether the absence of his actions may have resulted in a loss. By choosing to invert himself in the heat of the battle, Neil turned the tide of the events. Unlike the car chase, his actions aren't directly caused by what he would create. It is still a cycle, but it's not as dead set as the protagonist's car chase scene. Also, it's key to note that Clemence Posier's character, named Laura, literally has an entire conversation with the protagonist towards the beginning of the movie, literally telling him about cause and effect. While showing on a recording that the protagonist is behind his actions in forwards and backwards motion, demonstrating so with an inverted bullet, it makes us think about this concept a little deeper, and to me it was the main example that led me to make this video about free will in the movie. Stephen Hawking theorized that in a time curve, retrocausality could occur. Put simply, cause may not always precede effect. It is a mind-bending concept that challenges our typical chronological point of view. In Christopher Nolan's film Tenet, the character Neil argues that in spite of reverse time irradiation, allowing for a type of closed-loop time travel, free will still exists, and what one chooses to do has meaning in both regular and reverse chronology. Neil goes on to explain that in order to believe that one's actions have meaning in the past requires a leap of faith on your part that a particular course of action is worth taking, even when you know the immediate consequences of that action before you take the action. Tenet poses the question, if you know what the consequences of your actions will be in the future, does that mean you do not have a choice in the present and your free will is robbed from you? The film does come up with an answer to this question, and it's definitely one that will make us continue to rewatch Tenet and have questions over this very concept. The answer that the film gives is the faith that doing the thing you are about to do is for the best. In the act of accepting or thwarting your future, you can in fact maintain free will because no one is forcing you to do what you are about to do. So you can, in fact, know what will happen as a result of your actions. Yet you maintain free will because it was your choice whether to accept this channel or not. You have power to fight against destiny and make something new happen. As stated in Tenet, the humans in the future think they can change the world of the past without destroying themselves in the future. So it is theoretically possible to break a closed time loop and make something different happen, in spite of the grandfather paradox which is discussed in the film. The concept of free will is typically only analysed in regular chronology, travelling in one direction. From past to present to future, from cause to decision to effect, and from situation to free will and to consequence. But Tenet poses a world in which you have free will travelling forward in time, and you can still have free will while travelling backwards. but you have to choose if it is worth changing things, given that you know how things will work out if you avoid changing them. It is mind-bending, but an intriguing question to wrestle with after seeing what Nolan brought to the table with his latest film. So in conclusion, with each character in their own state and cycle, it's hard to fully answer if they have free will. On the one hand, it can be simply argued that they do not have free will, and that each character is simply fulfilling their own cycle, creating reasons for themselves to act on the same things. On the other, one can also argue that there are certain instances within the movie that show the possibility of free will, even if they are still situated within their own cycles. Neil's inversion during the tide of the battle was a decision made at the last minute. Many of the decisions made throughout the movie seem to be free will, but also have underlying tones that they may not be. Really, it's up to the individual viewer to interpret the movie and decide whether or not it has free will. To me, this is one of the genius aspects of how Christopher Nolan has tackled time in Tenet. But that was my video exploring the question of free will in Christopher Nolan's latest film. As Nolan was pointing to in his interview last year, this is a key question he wanted to tackle with his approach to time in the film, and after many re-watches, it is definitely something that has grew on my mind. It will be interesting to see how he tackles this concept in different films, like he has approached it briefly in previous ones, and it definitely gets us talking about some of the most important questions there are. But let me know down below what your thoughts are towards the notion of free will in Tenet, and how well do you think the film was able to question it. For more videos on Tenet and other upcoming films and TV shows, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating. I will be doing my next video on the Nolan Variations book very soon, so make sure to check out my first video on Nolan becoming a director, and also keep a lookout for whenever I post future content in this series. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.